What's up, everybody? Well, today we have the premiere of episode 6, Too Many Tuna Sandwiches of Dexter New Blood. Now, this episode, after the high that I was on last week in episode 5, which is potentially my favorite episode of the season, at least my favorite thus far, along with the premiere, this episode, much like episode 4, I thought was fine. Not really a whole lot here that's bad or anything that's really standing out to me as a bit too rough as far as storytelling goes, but there was certainly some contrived storytelling that I'll get into, and a few things, stylistic elements, and a few things story direction-wise that's starting to wear thin on me a little bit, but overall this is an episode that keeps propelling the plot forward in a few different ways. The biggest thing, starting off this episode wasting no time with, is that you got Sheriff Angela. She pulls over Jim and immediately just confronts him on the name of Dexter Morgan. Doesn't waste any time. And what I really liked about this interaction that they had, where she forces him to come to the sheriff's station, they sit down, they talk with each other, is that this is the first person that I can think of, at least in a romantic way, that just absolutely calls Dexter on all of his shit, doesn't listen to any of his excuses, doesn't fall for any of his little spells, and then sends his ass packing. Pretty much every other time, he's able to kind of talk his way out of it, or give a little bit of a sympathy thing, or say the right thing, and still keep a glimmer of hope. And I'm sure there is going to be a glimmer of hope that they'll at least interact throughout the rest of the season, maybe get back together. But for right now, the fact that she's like, this was all a lie, this was a lie from the beginning, and he gives these explanations, and she's like, I don't give a fuck, it's still a lie, bye, get out. Like, that was just kind of refreshing to me. The fact that she's this strong female character that isn't going to fall for any bullshit, that she's actually, you know, somebody that's smart and somebody that's firm in the ground that she plants her feet in, and I was entertained by that right off the bat in the episode.
I couldn't be Dexter Morgan anymore. He was cursed. And I wasn't going to pass that curse down to Harrison. Even
the way that they end that conversation, where he stops and he turns back around, and you think he's going to give some cool little sly remark or something that's going to weasel her back in, and he goes, "You're going to keep my secret?" And she's just like, oh, just leave. Like, that was really good. We also get a good bit more development regarding the character relationships surrounding Clancy Brown's character of Kurt. So he gets much more of this father-son dynamic with Harrison, which definitely is seeming like that's going to be the big thing that's going to have to be resolved by the end of the season, whenever the cat's out of the bag and we find out that he's torn between two serial killer fathers, quite literally. But I like the way that their relationship's starting to develop. He's giving him everything that Harrison needs in the absence of Dexter. And I also liked the different dynamics that we get with the other characters, to where his relationship starts to take a little bit more of an antagonistic turn with Dexter himself, where Dexter starts to see through his bullshit. And then you get the podcast girl, and I can't remember her name, to where she is talking to him and kind of calling him out and trying to get answers, and quite literally gets just about lured to her death, which I thought was funny. I'm like, you know what, you're specializing in murderers, and you just walked into like the easiest, most obvious trap ever. But luckily Dexter saves her. But I like so far how they are continuing to build out this character of Clancy Brown, even in a really creepy, eerie way, where he's making like a plaster covering for the gunshot wound on his latest victim, and then just loses his mind about how imperfect it looks and just starts fucking beating her skull in. Like, this guy is such a weird character, to where he's so friendly and so likable and such a cool, like, guy that you would want to hang out with in town, but he's also so sinister and mean in certain aspects, and then also so, like, not weak or whiny, but just like vulnerably weird. Like, whenever he's kind of like all upset that he shot her and she didn't get to run away the right way in the last episode. There's so many layers to this character that every time we unveil a new layer, I'm just continuously more fascinated in this villain. And I liked seeing a little bit of that classic Dexter, that Miami Metro, that sly version of Dexter again, to where he sees Kurt luring that girl into that cabin, and he clearly knows that something's up. Like, he sees all the signs, all the serial killer bells are going off, and he just bursts his way into the situation and bursts the door open. Like, he's being friendly about it. Like, oh, let's check this place out. Oh, man, this place is nice. Oh, is this a bathroom? And that was just a fun scene, because you just see Clancy Brown, like, gritting his teeth like, motherfucker, if you don't get the hell out of here and let me kill this bitch. But it was so funny to see Dexter just play that sly dog that he always was, to where he's looking at another serial killer in his face, and he's just like, got you, babe. I know what's going on here. That part was really fun. Now, moving on to some things about this episode that I'm a bit mixed on. I understand 100% where a lot of the anger and a lot of the angstiness and a lot of the attitude is coming from with Harrison. I mean, that whole scene with the psychologist, the therapist, kind of lays it all in the line, in case you couldn't figure it out on your own, which is pretty surface level, that he's pissed off about being abandoned, he's pissed off about his stepmom dying, possibly by his hand. We'll find out. He's pissed off about his mom being murdered. He's pissed off about Dexter never really seeming like he cares all that much. Like, all these things I understand, and he has perfectly valid reasons to lash out here and there. But as a viewer, I find his character a little hard to really be entertained by when they just completely hammer home that bitchy, teen, angsty attitude constantly with Harrison's character. I mean, there's times where I understand him. There's times where it's cool seeing that he's a little bit different than Dexter. Like whenever he had full confidence to walk up to the girls in, episode 2, where Dexter would have been a little more nerdy and a little more reserved about it. But now we're getting to the point where every single conversation he has with Dexter, as a father, I want to smack the living shit out of him. Like, it's just every single interaction. He throws away his breakfast, throws away the plate and the fucking fork, too, on top of all that, which is just a dick move. We didn't even talk about that. What the hell, Harrison? And in an episode like now, where every single time he talks to his father, it's just like, fuck you, Dad. Bye. I'm going to school. And Dexter is absolutely a shit father. Like, I'm sorry. He's my favorite character on the show. Obviously, he's one of my favorite characters of all time. I love the guy. But watching him as a father, he never does anything right. He barely even does anything, period. Like, every single time he hears something, like he ODs, oh, all right, we need to stop doing this, Harrison. Oh, fuck you, Dad, whatever. And he's just like, oh, Harrison. And then you get into all the things in this episode where he doesn't go to his therapy. So then he forces him to go to his therapy. And then he tells him he can't have a job. And then tells him that, you know, you don't be talking to him about your wrestling match because he's going to make you do bad things. Like, there's so many things where it's like, dude, you cannot interact with this kid at all, and you need to change that. But Harrison never helps because as a viewer, much like how when you watch Breaking Bad and you could never completely get on Skyler's side because Dexter is our protagonist and he is the guy that we are following, he's the one that we're rooting for, we're always going to be on his side over Harrison's to a certain extent. So they need to do a little bit more work at making this kid more likable. I understand where all of his irritation is coming from, and I'm not saying it's not realistic, but as a viewer, it's not entertaining anymore. I want to smack the shit out of him. He's just this bitchy little teenager that won't shut up, and it's just like, God, give him another layer, please. Even to the point where he goes and he fucks Dexter's girlfriend's daughter, which, okay, they're teenagers, they're stupid, I get it, they're both attractive kids. But then he comes back and the sheriff's like, handle this, and leaves. And then Dexter just says like 2 words to him and that's it. That's all the handling he does. He's like, hey, you can't sneak out at night. Did you even know I was gone? No. All right, I'm going to school. Fuck you, Dad. And that's all we get. That's, come on. Come on. It's bringing back a little bit of that annoyance that I had, the smallest nitpick of an annoyance that I had in season 4, which is Dexter just so quickly dismisses everything going on in his personal life just because he has this thing that he needs to do. And it gets to a point where it stretches your believability. I mean, this kid, I don't believe that he would even hang around his dad, because his dad just does not give a fuck about him. And I don't understand why, and we might be coming to it, but why Dexter can't just have a real conversation with his son. He didn't want to talk about all of his past trauma in front of this strange guy in this little room. Fine, I get that. But when he gets home and he starts to talk to Harrison again, why not say, hey, my mother was butchered in front of me. Like, I'm fucked up too, I've been fucked up. Like, even something simple like that, one little tiny reveal. He knows that his kid's got a dark passenger, but he's still not doing anything to talk to him about it. Not doing anything to like coach him or try to understand him. He's just letting him unleash it wherever. Now at a wrestling match too, where he just sits there and looks at it and he's like, oh fuck, now he's doing it in public. And I'm also beginning to wear thin on Deb and the way that she's been utilized, which I believe I mentioned maybe in episode 4, but it's getting a little bit one note to where Deb is just there to bitch at him now, and she's just there to shit on him constantly. And I understand, again, the realism of that. That's his trauma, that's his way of beating himself up. I get all of that. I understand what they're doing. But again, as a viewer, it's not very entertaining anymore. And as a viewer, it's not something that I really want to see any more of. There's times where she needs to call him out and put him in his place. That's great. That's what Deb always did. But there's also the warmer side of Deb. And we saw a lot of that in the first episode and maybe even the second episode, where she has different layers to the voice that she is inside of his head. But the past like 4 episodes straight has just been bitching, 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 bitching. And it's like, it's getting one note. Now, 2 things in this episode that I did not like. One of which I feel like is just contrived writing. The other is genuinely just a nitpick, much like the line of dialogue that I took issue with in episode 5 with Batista. So the entire plot line to where you have Angela and her deputy, I believe, go out and search this mountain range and search these caverns thinking that maybe Kurt might be hiding something, and that's why he called the search off and is playing this whole fake thing that his son is in New York. And she's right. So she goes to this cavern, they find a little man-made block, she goes through, and the first body that she finds is her friend from a decade or so ago. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, just find a body. The fact that this guy has probably killed dozens of women. I mean, look at all those fucking wanted posters in every scene in her office. Kurt has been doing his thing for a while. But the only and the first body that she finds just happens to be the one that she has a personal connection to, and it's the one that's closest to the entrance. Something about that just felt so convenient and so overwritten that as soon as she saw the bracelet, I was like, come on, it can't be her fucking friend that quickly. Just find a body. And the thing that is a genuine nitpick is the final line of the episode. And again, I understand how they're trying to frame the dialogue, but whenever Dexter answers the phone and says, "This is Jim," which he never answers the phone that way, especially when he knows it's his girlfriend. He always says, "Hey, you." They even made a point to carry that back from Rita and all the times that he said that. "This is Jim." I don't need Jim. I need Dexter Morgan. Like, I get that final line about, I don't need the fake you, I need the real you. Like, that's a really good line of dialogue as far as how to frame it. But just the way that they kind of forced it together, but with him having to force saying, "I'm Jim," genuinely a nitpick. Like, literally, the problem is this big. I acknowledge that. But I kind of rolled my eyes at it. You know, it was just like the whole thing with Batista where he's like, "Oh, what was that kid's name? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, Harrison." It's just moments of dialogue like that where I'm like, ooh, could have used a second pass. But overall, guys, this is an episode that is continuing to propel things forward into our third act. I liked it overall. A lot of the story things I enjoyed. I especially enjoyed the whole calling Dexter on his bullshit thing and getting the classic Dexter forensic investigator back inside of that little hall of death inside of that cabin. But a lot of things that they're just starting to do a little too much in this show with the angsty Harrison and the bitchy Dev is just starting to wear thin on me a little bit, to where every time it pops up I kind of lose interest in what's going on, because we've hammered this home for the past half of the season. So nonetheless, what do you guys think of episode 6 of Dexter New Blood? Did you like this episode? Did you not like this episode? Is it your favorite thus far in the season? And did my 2 issues with the episode become issues for you, or did you not even notice any of that? Let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are on this episode, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're a fan of Dexter. We've still got 4 more episodes, and then I will do a ranking of all the seasons and a ranking of all of the villains. So plenty of Dexter content still coming your way over the next month or so. Thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.